Welcome, everyone. Thank you so much for listening or joining today. We are going to be talking with Andre Treiber, DNC Youth Council Chair today. And we're going to be talking about the upcoming county/Senate district state and the upcoming state convention, but the county and Senate district one's happening this Saturday, and then the convention's taking place next in July. And so some dates to talk about, we'll be talking about more later with Andre, but and these, like the Saturday, I was talking with the county and Senate district Democratic conventions, and then also in July in Dallas from July 14th to the 16th, right here in Dallas, actually. So if you're locally listening in, you can make it out possibly, but you have to attend these county and Senate district ones happening this Saturday. Very important if you want to attend this Dallas. So we have a unique opportunity for it to be in Dallas right here locally, but in order to make it out to that, you have to make it out this Saturday. So please register. We'll put the links in the video and in the chat for everyone here, and I'll pass it to Andre.
Hey y'all, thanks for having me, and I am happy to come in and talk all things convention. The very first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to share a link in the chat that I will also read out loud, which is txdem.co/delegate-guide. That is the link to my 2022 delegate guide. I've written a delegate guide for the convention cycle, each convention since 2016, and I'm still keeping that up. And that is where I am always going to be putting the most up-to-date everything related to state convention. So anytime after this, if you have any questions, after we talk today or after you tune into this afterwards, that is the #1 resource. I can never plug it enough. That is always where I'll be keeping the most up-to-date stuff. Okay, so conventions. When most people, I think about Democratic conventions, they tend to think about what we see on TV, every 4 years during the presidential cycle. People think about the big national convention, the culmination of the national presidential primary, delegates going to elect the nominee, the big convention hall, the ridiculous hats and confettis and balloons. And that's what I think most people tend to think of. And nowhere near as many people are aware that, at least in Texas, we actually have our local county and Senate district conventions and our state conventions every 2 years, even when it's not the presidential cycle. So then that begs the question, if we're not electing a president every 2 years, then what are we actually doing at these conventions? And I'm glad you asked. So the Texas Democratic Party is almost entirely organized actually around the convention to convention cycle. So at our conventions, that is where we elect our state officers. That is where we pass our platform. That is where we ratify rules changes. So if you are interested in the actual workings of the Democratic Party in Texas, which odds are you probably are if you're tuning into this, then the conventions are actually incredibly important for you. So I think the most natural way to discuss them is kind of just talk about, okay, so what are the end goals at the end of what does a successful convention look like, and then how do we get to there? So probably the big sort of headline event with this convention is the election of our statewide officers. We do those during midterms. So in Texas, that means our state party chair and our state party vice chair, which state law actually mandates must be opposite gender. And then we have a vice chair of finance, we have a treasurer, and we have a secretary. So we elect those 5 positions. We also elect a majority of the SDEC, that's the State Democratic Executive Committee, and that is the executive committee for the Democratic Party. They meet usually about quarterly. Every once in a while there can be a special or emergency meeting, and during convention years they'll also meet like right before the convention, and they take care of all the like interim and statutory business that we need to do in the party. So I have served on that before, and there are all sorts of the normal committees you might expect, a rules committee, a resolutions committee. We have a messaging committee. During the legislative session, we do a legislative committee to do updates and planning around that. planning the convention. That's a major thing I work on, and that's a huge thing that the SDC does. Each cycle is planning the conventions. So we elect almost the entirety of the SDC. And again, as I said, we will ratify a platform. We will ratify and pass resolutions. We will ratify and pass rules changes. So that's kind of what the end goal is for a successful state convention. So now let's talk about how we get there. And this whole thing starts this weekend with our local county and Senate district conventions. So for the most part, I'm just going to shortcut saying that all as local conventions. And the reason for that is because what your local county or Senate district convention will look like is going to vary heavily based off where you live. So some particular like major urban areas, for instance, can do a unified county convention where all of the Senate districts like contained within a county will meet at the same place, and then we'll perhaps break out to do individual Senate district caucuses. You have some counties that are contained wholly within a single Senate district, so they will just have their one county convention all within that single Senate district. You could have certain counties that choose to just not do the unified county convention and instead have their different Senate district conventions. So there isn't exactly a one size fits all for what your local convention will be like, but the important stuff that goes on there is the local conventions are the primary way to become a delegate to the state convention, and they also help get the ball rolling for a couple of things. Primarily, they get the ball rolling for resolutions that we will be sending on to the state convention to debate and pass there, and rules changes. So what do I mean when I say it's the primary way to become a state delegate? Oh, and sorry, another asterisk before I get to that is because the convention planning process took place and parties were having to look at, what to book, what we would plan. Really, when we were at the peak of Omicron, every convention is further going to look fundamentally different. There are some county parties that are just going to do a full convention that would look the exact same as it might have in the past. And this could be a whole day affair with speakers and committees and all these things meeting. And then other groups might be choosing to take on pro forma conventions, which are really just the bare minimum statutory requirements of gaveling in and out to make sure we meet the rules, but without, necessarily all the fanfare and all of the discussion and debate. So, without knowing what every single locality plans on doing, it's hard for me to say exactly what yours would look like, but just don't be surprised if you and a friend go to two different conventions, compare notes, and find wildly different experiences from local, because this year especially, it's going to look really different for everyone, and that's okay, and that's totally normal. Okay, so I said the primary way to become a delegate to the state convention. What does that mean? So at these conventions, people that are interested in going to the state convention will either mark that while signing up, or will do so when they check in or register at their local convention. And depending on the number of people that are interested in going to the state convention, there will actually be there will actually be elections among the county delegates for state delegate spots. Now, I'm just going to say, in a midterm, I have never seen that being necessary, and that there has always been, at least in midterms, more delegate slots available than there are people that are interested in going to state. So odds are most people are not going to have these little local elections going on. It'll just be, for instance, I'm in Senate District 14 in Travis County. Our allocation is we probably have about a delegation of, I'll just guess, around 750 state delegates. Our pre-registration's only at like 450 to 500. So what we will likely do is we will show up, we will count the number of people that were interested, and someone will make a motion and say, I move that we elect everyone who signed up to be a state delegate. And someone will second it, and we'll say, and we'll all say aye because we'll be happy we're going to state, and it'll save everyone a ton of time of having to do a bunch of little elections that weren't necessary. And there's a good chance that that will be a similar experience for a lot of people, regardless of if you're in a large or small county. Most counties will not hit their delegate allocation. Okay, so I've mentioned this delegate allocation. Where does that come from? So there is basically a ratio based off how your county and Senate district performed in the 2018 election, specifically for governor. The more votes that you gave, or the more Democratic votes for governor that your area had, the more state delegates that it's awarded. And so that, is also updated every 4 years. But again, during midterms, odds are there will be more slots available than people that want to go. So if you want to go to the state convention, you really don't need to stress at all. You will get to go. And so what's the, but the question is, what if I'm unable to attend? What if something comes up? I'm sick, I'm out of town, etc. That's okay, actually, even if you miss out, because these spots are almost certainly not going to be full. If there are still spots available after the local conventions adjourn, you are actually still able to get onto those rolls. Now you would need to reach out locally to your county party chair, and they'll be able to direct you to the right spot. But odds are all you'll have to do is say, email them and say, hey, I am interested in attending. And they will say, okay, we got you added, because odds are there will be space available across the state. So even if you are unable to make it to your local convention, don't sweat, you can still make it to the state convention. Okay, so these local conventions, they could look like all sorts of things, but the important thing is we're picking our state delegates to send them to state, and we are passing local resolutions that could either be, memorial resolutions to memorialize people we lost. They could be just resolutions that are, statements of policy or principle, kind of the classic resolution that you think of, or lastly, they could actually be in the form of rules changes. And that is the way that local grassroots folks can send up rules changes. I have actually filed one. We don't need to go on a sidebar about that, but that's something I'd be happy to talk about later if we want. And okay, so now let's put ourselves in this headspace. We are in between the county conventions. We just had super successful local conventions. They were fun, they were successful. We all got elected and we're heading to the state. And then there's the state convention ahead of us in July. So what are we doing in that state? Well, shortly after, I'm sorry that I don't have the date off the top of me, but shortly after all the county convention stuff is done and all of the local parties have sent their minutes and their delegate rolls and everything to the state, the state party will actually open up publicly online. This will be another example of a link that I will put in the delegate guide for everyone to find. But it will also be on the convention website, which was shared earlier on the slide. And I think it's literally just Texas Democratic Convention.
I put it in the chat.
Okay, yeah, TexasDemocraticConvention.com, yeah. And that is actually where you will file to run for some of those positions that we talked about earlier. So what are all the things that you can run for at the state convention? So there were those, top of the ticket, if you will, statewide party officers. But within every Senate district, you will be electing 2 state Democratic Executive Committee members. Which the state also mandates have to be opposite gender, which at least in the party rules, we have tried to include as much gender neutral language as we can, but unfortunately there is some stuff that we're dealing with state statute where it's very explicit. But each Senate district will be electing 2 state Democratic executive members to serve 2 terms. And then they will elect someone to the State Convention Rules Committee, State Convention Resolutions Committee, and then State Convention Nominations Committee. And that's a big one. And we'll come to the Nominations Committee in a sec. So you can file to run for all of these things. It's a very easy form that you fill out online. And then it is open campaign seasons. If you want to run for these things, which I encourage people to run, for whatever they're interested in doing, you will actually receive a list of the registered delegates that are able to vote for you. So it could be the members of your Senate district and so on. And you're able to campaign for them. So if you want to run, I'll just use platform as an example because everyone loves talking about the platform. If you want to run to be on the platform committee, you should be calling and emailing your folks and saying, hey, these are the ideas that I believe in. These are what I'm going to fight for. This is why I believe they should be in the Democratic platform. And I'm asking for your vote. But it's the same thing for all of these positions. It really is like a little campaign season. And I will just say, if you really want to win these spots and they're highly contested, it's something that's actually doable if you just put in the time and effort. It doesn't have to be something that you spend money on. You will see, I'm almost certain, among the most competitive races, I'll just assume like party chair as an example. You probably will see a postcard or two or a mailer that comes from these candidates. If you just want to run to be your Senate district, rules member, you don't have to spend a dime. You can do the free email plan from MailChimp. You can take some of your time out of a weekend to just go through and dial through the delegates. A lot of them are likely to be, if you've been getting involved, going to meetings, maybe going to your county executive committee or some of the local clubs, a lot of them are going to be people that you recognize. And if you want to start and make it easy, start with those folks because it'll be a softball and it'll be nice getting all those secured. But that's kind of how you would fill your time between now and then. On the party business side of things, there will be temporary state committees kind of preparing the skeleton for the platform and for resolutions so that people are able to work on those at the convention. So if you hear someone say they're on like the temporary resolutions committee, it doesn't mean that they're actually like doing things that the resolution committee should do. What it means is what'll frequently happen is there'll be a dozen resolutions that are really similar passed in a bunch of different places. And instead of giving all 12 of those to the primary resolutions committee, they do their best to, kind of combine things and take out redundant work. So that's the kind of stuff that that temporary committees will be doing that you'll probably hear about. Okay, and then it's the convention. We're in Dallas. There's there for 3 days. I'm not going to go over each day of the schedule, but that's something that, again, will be in my guide. It will be on the Texas Democratic Convention website. And honestly, I'm a nerd. I like this stuff. I genuinely have a lot of fun. I have a great time, going to these things. There are a lot of great trainings. There are a lot of great speeches. There are a ton of caucuses that meet for all sorts of different issues, everything you can think of. We'll have like a caucus meeting or a training or something. We're going to have our general sessions. We're probably going to hear from all of our nominees because this will be after the runoffs are done. On the Saturday Saturday is a big day for business. That's when we hold all of our elections in the Senate district. So, if you can only make it for one day and that's the stuff you care about, then Saturday's got to be the day you make it. And then Sunday has a bunch of party business because that's when those committees that we elect will be meeting. And when I say if, let's just go with when there is a contested election among the statewide races, that voting would take place on Sunday. And so this is the last thing they'll do. And then we can talk about whatever, because I know it's just been a huge info dump, but I'm trying to just work us through in the order that things go. So I mentioned we'll talk about the nominations committee at the end. Okay, so it's not exactly super direct on how we elect these statewide party officers. And it can seem really, really confusing if you just try to read it straight through to the rules. So here's how it goes. The nominations committee will consist of 1 member elected from each Senate district, so that'll be 31, plus 3 members that are appointed by the party chair. And that's actually what all the committees look like. It's 31 elected members plus 3 appointed members. And what that nominations committee is tasked with doing is coming out with a slate of party officers that they present to the convention floor to ratify. And when that report is put out to the floor, there is a chance, and by chance, let's just go with certainty, that folks would oppose that report for one way or the other, because that is how it actually opens it up for normal delegates to vote on it. So, someone will come out and they will say, yes, for, it's the nominations committee report that the chair will deliver. And they'll say, for chair, we recommend this, for vice chair, this, and they'll go down the line. And likely there will be someone at the mic ready to go who did not support that person so-and-so for chair or for vice chair, ready to make a motion in support of their person instead. So there's some parliamentary stuff, there's some rule stuff. Don't worry about the specifics of that unless you really want to, and then we can have that conversation offline, getting in the weeds. The important thing for you to know is that that is actually the chance when just delegates on the floor like us that aren't on that committee will actually have our chance to vote up or down on candidates for chair. Because what'll happen is there'll be the report that says the report supports candidate A. Someone will make a motion to change that to candidate B. So when we vote on the motion, basically your vote will be, am I supporting the report that has candidate A, or am I supporting this motion with candidate B? So that's the point where we actually get the chance to vote. So if you are interested in the statewide party official elections, then that is the important thing for you to pay attention to. So pay attention to your people running for nominations committee, and then pay attention for when that report hits the floor, which would be on Sunday. We got technical on a couple of things. I skimmed past the overview. There's also, there's just there's fun events, there's receptions, there's breakfasts. There's actually honestly just like a lot of hanging out with your friends. There's all sorts of other stuff, but I tried to get the highlights of the party business of things that we can actually achieve if you want to work on changing the party, and that those are the things that you can actually focus on and legitimately achieve within this cycle. But that's kind of my overview. I'm happy to take any questions. If there's anything you want more details on, whatever, I'm open for it.
Does anyone have any questions? I can start off with a question, and then if anyone would like to ask a question, feel free to raise your hand or write it in the chat, or write the word stack in the chat, then we can go like in an order. But I guess from your years past, Andre, how has basically the state convention being in a certain city impacted the amount of delegates or people wanting to go to the state convention? So like, for example, this year is going to be in Dallas. Will that mean, like, since we're in North Texas, like Dallas County, et cetera, there's going to be more people wanting to go to this one that will then impact like our specific races or like delegates that we want to, while like other areas might not be that way because they would have to like then less inclined because of travel, et cetera? Yeah,
I mean, without a doubt, there's going to be geographic biases and things like that. So since since your members are going to be in Dallas or in the Dallas area, it is a lot easier for someone to commit to running for something, because it is, you don't have to worry about the hotel cost usually, or the logistics. So yeah, when the convention, it rotates around. It typically is always in Dallas, Fort Worth, Houston, or San Antonio, and that's not just actually because of bias. It's because our convention is so large. Those are basically the 4 convention centers in the state that can host our convention. I'm not even kidding. If you want to go in the weeds, we can, but long story short, because we break out into Senate districts, there's very few conventions that can host 31 simultaneous caucuses of 400 to 800 people. So yes, you're going to see that bias. Whereas someone coming from the El Paso area, there might only be one person, running for rules, because they're just going to have less people showing up. Where that doesn't have a bias is there are certain votes that are going to be cast by delegation strength. And what that basically means is anytime there are votes that are cast, you get to vote with like the full strength of what your delegation is awarded. So let's just say a Dallas area Senate district, since it's easier to attend, you'll actually fill up. I'll just use, you have 600 allotted and 600 people sign up and show up. So that means each person is just going to be voting and it'll be totally normal. But let's use El Paso again as an example. Let's say there's a Senate district that has 400 people, but only 200 people sign up. Well, we're not going to punish El Paso for having the farthest distance that they have to travel. So instead, what it is those 200 people would vote, but then we would effectively multiply those votes by 2 so that El Paso would still be voting with the full strength that El Paso should have had if they were able to attend. So that's not really going to affect you for your, if you want to run for something within your Senate district, because y'all are all within your Senate district together. So you're okay there. If you're in a Senate district that has multiple counties, that could be relevant because counties would have their delegation strength. Where you will likely see that having the biggest impact is if it comes down to an actual contested, like counted vote for something like party chair. Then there will have to be a lot of the delegation strength math, and we'll have to see that happen. I saw Bob in the chat say, will there be issue caucuses such as environment or labor? Yes, there are a lot of issue caucuses actually. There are some official caucuses that will be there every time. And these caucuses actually elect people to the SDEC, though they're not always having these elections at convention. It's up to the caucus bylaws. But the official caucuses are Veterans Caucus, Women's Caucus, Stonewall/LGBTQ Caucus, Asian American Caucus, the Coalition of Black Democrats, Non-Urban/Rural Caucus, Labor Caucus, Youth Caucus, Disability Caucus, Environmental Caucus, and Hispanic Caucus. So those all have official representation within the Democratic Party with 2 SDC members each, and those always meet. But basically, it's always been, if you can put together enough people and get something going, you can have an issue caucus that meets. So I would say on top of those official ones, not even exaggerating, there will probably be like 30 plus other like issue and group caucuses that meet. So there will be something for everyone. There will actually be probably so many somethings for everyone that you'll find a bunch of your stuff is double booked just because there's so many groups meeting.
Awesome. And if anyone else has a question, feel free to raise your hand, like we were saying earlier. I think one of the questions I had is, I ran in 2020, I was on the rules committee, and Bernie delegate, but like, how is this element of it going to be in person, going to be different from online? Like, are we going to start campaigning after this Saturday? Are we going to campaign in person on Saturday? Like, how does that work?
That is, as far as that goes, that is a strategic call for you. When I ran for the SDEC in 2016, when I did that, I had my announcement on county convention day, and that was when I started campaigning. That doesn't mean that's what you have to do. That was what I chose to do. And a campaign can be as formal as you want it to be, right? I am the nerd that went and made buttons for it. You don't have to be that person. You don't have to, spend that money. But that is something you could choose to do. As far as what it was structured like, so anyone that either watched or was on a committee in 2020, obviously those were digital. It will actually basically be the same structure, except instead of us being in a Zoom room, we're going to be all around a long table. But in terms of, it'll be a member from each Senate district, a chair and 2 appointed, and there'll usually be some staff in the room to help. And these are also open. So these rooms will actually, there will be, seats for people that just want to attend and watch. So I'll just use rules as an example because, I was also on that. And, so what rules would do is we would have a certain number of pending rules changes. Anything that was passed by the SDEC in the past 2 years, plus anything that was passed up to us from the local level via resolution. And we will debate, discuss, amend, etc. Those rules proposals one by one, and voting them up or down. In terms of all the ones, this year, I guess I don't know what's going to get there from the local level, but what's from the SDC so far is a vote up for me. But that's a that's a sidetrack. And then when all is said and done, we will adjourn, and then the chair of rules committee would go out to the general session, and whenever it lines up with the schedule, they would give their report from the committee. So the only thing that really affected stuff that it was digital is we were able to space out the convention. If you remember, it took place it was longer than a week, and so there weren't conflicting meetings. Since this is taking place during the weekend, rules will be meeting the same time that resolutions is meeting, and all that stuff. So if there's something that you and your friends want to watch, you might need to strategize a little bit about having one person watching rules, one person watch platform, so on, and so on and so on. But that's just, those are the logistics of us doing it over the weekend instead of over the course of 10 to 12 days or whatever. Other than that, though, the structure, the way things actually operate, it's going to be the exact same way. The question is, if my county party selects me as a delegate, do I have to run for a committee? Nope. You don't. No one's going to make you do anything. They don't even, you technically don't even have to vote on anything if you don't want to. I would hope you do, because I imagine that's part of why you're showing up, is because you want to get involved and make your voice heard. But you do not have to run for anything. Most people do not run for anything. It's ultimately a majority of people are not running for something. I encourage people to run. I ran for something the first convention I went to, but you absolutely do not have to. There's nothing that says you need to. But I hope the bug bites you eventually, and what you begin to see is eventually who's going to agree with you the most but yourself. And so if there's ideas you want to see the party doing, or actions you want to see it taking, maybe one day you'll see that you're the person that has the best ideas. Are there any tips and tricks for getting familiar with procedural motions for folks who aren't savvy with Robert's rules? This is funny. I actually just passed my parliamentarians exam to join the National Association of Parliamentarians, literally just in February. And so for me, I made flashcards for myself and stuff like that. But I would say the average person does not need to know that. There are usually, every once in a while, heading into convention, I will see groups sponsor events like Robert's Rules 101, basic parliamentary procedure guides. You can honestly find very good overviews, maybe one pagers, or a simple front page back, front and back of a page guide that could be useful for you to either print or save on your phone or something, to have available for you. Usually, well, okay, I'm going to back myself up there. I do think it is good to have someone, especially if you're operating in a group, be good with Robert's rules. You don't necessarily need every individual to be good on it, but it is best to have a good number of people that are familiar with Robert's rules, especially if you're trying to get something done. Having a couple of people on your side that are familiar with Robert's rules will just make sure that if you do get into a fight, it's just a fair fight. That's I think that's what's important about Robert's rules. But as far as things that are done on the general session, usually there are several paid parliamentarians to with the general session, and appointed parliamentarians. So that part's usually taken care of, but it might be good for you to save a guide. Do I have it around here? Hold on a second. There is this book. Oh no, it's blurring out. Robert's Rules of Order in brief. This is actually an official book that is put out by the folks that make Robert's Rules. This is very, very short, and this breaks down a lot of procedure in a very, very easy way. And at the beginning of the book, there's literally a thing that's like, if you're in a hurry to learn what you need to know before a meeting, if you have about, and then it literally breaks it down like 30 minutes, 45 minutes, 90 minutes. Here's what you should read, and you'll learn the basics. So I recommend the book. It's actually very cheap. And funny enough, this book is more or less all you need to actually pass the entrance exam if that's something you really care about. But this was a very good resource. There are definitely free ones out there as well, though. Any tips for running for a committee as a first-time attendee? I'm just getting involved and don't have many connections at all with the larger body of members. What would you recommend? I think the best thing I can recommend is just putting in the time ahead of the convention. Not ahead of this local one. That's not necessary. But when you run, you will be able to request and be given a list of delegates. And I would say a majority of people running do not take advantage of the fact that they're given that list. And maybe they'll send out an email or maybe a couple of emails. But far and away, I'm pretty sure this is true. I'm thinking through the stuff I've done at convention. Every single time I have won a race at convention, it's because I was putting in the time to make the calls and talk to individual people and earn their support. That is really the top thing you can do. More than all sorts of, I think people try to overcomplicate things, and I really think what you want to do is you just want to talk to people and earn their votes. There will be enough time between the county convention and state convention to do that. It can definitely be intimidating, especially if you don't know a lot of folks. As I said, I ran for a national delegate at my very first ever convention, and that was really intimidating because I definitely only knew about a dozen people out of the couple of hundred that were in my Senate district. Another thing you can do is, there will be check-in on the, there will be a big like check-in and registration booth, or I can't even call it a booth because it's a line of tables that stretches on forever because we have 31 Senate districts to check in. You can hang out there at your Senate district check-in, and there's nothing that says you can't meet and greet literally every single person from your Senate district that shows up that day. And if you've already put in the work of making the calls, when you see someone, it's like, oh, so great to finally see you in person. It's nice, I only ever saw you on a Zoom call, or, it's great to finally see you. It sounds funny, but I really just think the most basic campaigning things are really where it's at. I don't think you need to spend a lot of money on a postcard or literature or buttons. You can do those if you want to, but you can also win a race for absolutely $0. And then, yeah, Kevin, I saw you on the stack.
I guess to add to that, I guess a question is, it'll be voting in person, right? Once we get in Dallas in July.
Yes, this is going to be in-person voting. We could have a very, very long discussion over how we're just kind of at a weird rules impasse, and I don't think there has been any kind of majority agreement over how to pull off something that would be hybrid or allow for absentee voting or whatever. There's too many disagreements right now. So right now, pretty much the only thing people can agree on is having the in-person voting available. So yeah, it is key. If you want to vote for these things, you want to run for these things, you do got to show up specifically to the state convention one.
Yeah, I remember like when I ran, what helped me was getting people to the ballot, getting people the ballot right when it announced, like getting people to vote. But like that means then people will be there, and so then they can hear about the other person, etc. Possibly. But like I did like 3 emails. I called people. And then gave a text when the voting happening to let them know if they wanted one. So that's what helped me. I guess for you, Andre, so like this convention, it's happening this Saturday. Maybe, like you said, not that many people going. What's your like two-line pitch of like why they should attend? Like we know they can do all these different things, but like if you're just talking to someone who voted in the Democratic primary, maybe
Mhm.
someone who might be interested in going, what's your like a line pitch to why they
Yeah.
should join?
Um, and of course, I'm immediately going to complicate it, but with the asterisk of, again, the experience people are going to have on Saturday is going to be very broad, based off complications related to COVID and the different types of conventions. But for me, really, I think organizing begins at home in your community. Um, and I think the county or Senate district convention is a great on ramp for getting involved, either in your local party or just local Democratic and progressive politics. Um, and if there's a change you want to make, I think you start at home. Um, that really is it for me. Even as I work on national stuff, my focus is always on empowering the local grassroots. So to me, it really is important that folks are getting involved locally in their community, because that's what, if you want to change, some real big stuff, you gotta start the baby steps to get there.
Bob has a question.
Will there be internet? Yeah, I mean, it's just going to be at okay, so actually I'll do those separately. Cell service, yeah, I don't think there's going to be any issue there. The convention was at it's the, what is it, the K. Bailey Hutchison Convention Center, I think is the one there. Convention was there in 2014 and cell service was fine. Now, as far as internet or Wi-Fi goes, that is notoriously pretty expensive at convention centers. That is nationally, I've never been to a convention center that offers cheap Wi-Fi. So, you know, if you're staying at a hotel, sure, you'll have that. But I would operate under the assumption of yes, cell service, yes, data service, but do not expect to be able to get Wi-Fi for a reasonable price at the convention center. That's just my assumption, because convention centers have never had cheap Wi-Fi.
When is the last day to apply to run? Like, do you have to, when do you know like the date for that?
It's relatively close to the convention, actually. I do not know off the top of my head. That is something that will be known well beforehand. And really the deadline for filing ahead of time is so that we can have paper ballots prepared for the races that will be using paper ballots. There's some Senate districts that opt to vote by hand, but most, I believe we're now at the part where a majority of Senate districts actually vote by paper ballot. And so those just have to be printed, right? So it's usually about a week ahead of time. You technically can run from the floor, but you really should uh, put in your application ahead of time, so that if you're in a Senate district that uses ballots, your name will be on the ballot, because someone's name being on the ballot versus running against an open seat that you're trying to convince everyone to write your name on the ballot, that is a huge disadvantage for you. So you really should apply ahead of time, and you should also be doing that so that you can be campaigning ahead of time, because you'll only get the list of delegates once you've actually sent in your application.
Awesome. And just to be 100% clear, you can only like how could you can only be at the Dallas convention later in July if you attend this Saturday one, or could you be there and not be a voting member?
Yeah. So you will probably be able to be a state delegate even if you are unable to attend this Saturday. I only say probably because hypothetically your local delegation could fill up at this weekend's convention. The odds of that are low, but I don't want to make any promises to someone and then they come back to me and say, you said I could miss it. So you'll probably still be fine, but you still need to reach out to your party, your local party, as soon as possible, and you'll do that. There are, you can attend as a guest. Even if your local delegation fills up, you can still attend as a guest. And that'll be okay. You would be a non-voting member, but all meetings of the Democratic Party are open and public. So you can still attend as a guest. You can still go to all the trainings and, caucuses and stuff like that, right? Like there's still tons to do, even if you're a non-voting member. But I'm going to assume for the people that are tuning into this and watching this, you want to be a voting member. So you either want to attend the county convention / your local Senate district convention, or as soon as possible, contact your local party to say, I want to be a state delegate, even though I'm unable to attend the county convention.
Awesome. And yeah, we can probably we might do like as or like have like once after the Senate convention this Saturday to do something of like helping people with campaigning. And so that is something we can still like do like next week or following weeks after to help people with campaigning. And then I guess does anyone else have any questions, concerns they'd like to ask Andre?
By voting member, you mean to vote for people to go to national? Is that what you're talking about?
No, so there's no national convention in 2022. There's there are national DNC meetings that us DNC members go to, but there's no national convention in 2022. Voting members at the state convention are able to vote for statewide party officers, the chair, vice chair finance, secretary, and treasurer. They're able to vote for the people running for committees in your Senate district or the SDC within your Senate district, and able to vote on other party business, approving committee reports, stuff like that. That is what being a voting delegate gives you. Guests are still allowed access to the building, access into every single other room, but you would not have a vote on any of like those races.
Thank you.
Yep.
Awesome, Andre. I guess what other, I guess I'll just to fill up the time, unless you have anything else to say. What other things can people do to impact being there outside of being in a position of like a committee?
Ooh, okay. Thank you, because you actually cued me. There was a thing I remembered. Okay, first, the other tip that I'll just say is like, just wear comfy shoes. You don't have to dress up super formal. There are going to be some people showing up in suits. I can tell you I am not. But no matter how nice you dress, wear comfy shoes. If you're insisting on wearing dress shoes, like get good insoles or something, because you are going to be walking a lot through that weekend. So just wear good shoes. Okay. Yes, there are things to get involved with, even if you're not running. So first of all, there's all the different like caucuses and trainings. And some of those caucuses, they could be doing some various like business of their own, electing their own officers, stuff like that. And it's different from each caucus to caucus. So I don't want to give a broad rule, but yes, there's all sorts of stuff to do outside of these Senate district elections. And no one took real advantage of this in 2020, but it was kind of tough to, because but if you really want to flex some organizing muscle, you can actually do petitions at the state convention that if a petition, and these would be like for resolutions, if a petition gets 30% of the delegates signed on, it automatically is put to a vote on the floor. It gets to skip the resolutions process. Or if it gets 50% or more of the delegates signed on, it's automatically adopted without a vote. Because obviously, right, it makes sense. You have a majority of people signed on, therefore, you don't need a vote on it. And in 2016, there were 5, I think, of those petitions like successfully run and adopted. And to be honest, they were all incredible. They were all super progressive. The things that went through 2016, it was taking away super delegate vote. It was I'm not gonna remember all of them, but they were like party reform, things like that. And I just remember that was one of the big ones. That is something that people have successfully done in the past. If you really want to, it'll take some planning and organizing ahead of time, but that is very much something you could do even if you're not running for something. You could be doing stuff like that.
Don't worry.
And that's all I can think of off the top of my head now. There's never a shortage of stuff to do. There will always be literal several things meeting or convening at the same time. At best, you'll be double booked for any given hour slot, but probably you'll be like triple or quadruple booked for things you want to do.
Awesome. We'll for sure have to check in with that petition and help with campaigning afterwards. But thanks again, Andre, for joining. If there's anything else you'd like to share, we just have like a couple minutes left, but yeah.
No, y'all are always, again, I'm just going to plug txdim.co/delegate-guide. That's where I'm always going to be putting anything up to date. You are free to reach out to me on any social media or via email. My email is treiber.andre@gmail.com. I'm happy to answer any questions, help folks however I can. As far as things to plug, the DNC did just meet last weekend. I've posted my DNC, I've posted my report of how that meeting went. I actually think overall things went well, as well as I could reasonably expect, both for Texas and for progressives. A lot of progressives won their races in leadership positions in the DNC, including myself. So that's something that I've posted publicly. That would be an entire extra hour call if we wanted to talk about that stuff. But if that's something you want to follow up with afterwards or to read that, I'd be happy to talk DNC stuff with you as well.
Awesome. Well, we for sure have to invite you for one more, possibly the campaigning one. But other than that, thank you again. Lots of thank yous in the chat. But yeah, thanks again, Andre, for taking time out on a Thursday. Probably not the best day of the week, but we're still had to keep the organizing going for the Saturday.
Worked for me.
So yeah, awesome. Well, that's pretty much it for today. And thanks everyone for joining. And yeah, that's pretty much it. Awesome.